council meeting. Thank you. Thank you for attending the city council. We'll call the meeting to order and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilor Branch, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, next we had the consent agenda, and there was one item pulled, and that was D4, which was the Carolina Pines Avenue Street Improvements Project. Do we have a motion for the remaining items?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. And then for D4, I know we're going to have some additional commentary, I think, next week. Okay.
So we're just holding it?
Yep, I mean, you tell me how to proceed.
I mean, I have a couple things on D4, and yeah, maybe to just clarify, you're talking about the work session next Tuesday, that there's going to be discussion on the Carolina Pines Improvement Project. Yeah, I know there's just concerns that are coming from my residents about the delays here and wondering whether the bids that are being considered to be rejected maybe are still in the ballpark, perhaps, you know, of costs that might be appropriate at this time. I know costs have gone up a lot in the kind of inflationary environment we're in. But yeah, could you just clarify how we're going to approach this? It sounds like next Tuesday we're going to have a conversation.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Byron Sanders, Engineering Services. So we're going to have two things. We will be coming before you all next week with a plan that not only talks about Carolina Pines, but a number of projects where we're working right now to bring things into budget, identify funding opportunities, that sort of thing. Specifically for Carolina Pines, this rejection of the bid is really more of a step back to take steps forward. We did receive 3 bids with this recent re-advertisement. Those bids were all in the same ballpark. So we've got a lot of confidence that the pricing is fair. However, that pricing is still in excess of our engineer's estimate by about, I think it's 24%, somewhere around in there. So our plan is to reimagine the scope of the project and put it out, advertise it with a bid and 2 bid alternates. The base bid would carry the project from Lake Wheeler Road to about Henslow, with some bid alternates that one would address some storm drainage and other work on Henslow and carry the project from Henslow to approximately the railroad tracks. And the other bid alt would take it from the railroad tracks on to South Saunders Street. So really the plan is to, and understanding the frustration, really the plan is to try to build as much as we can with what we have, and also have an idea of what those other pieces are going to cost. We may be able, depending on the base bids, how they come back, to be able to look at some of those other pieces in those bid alts. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that we do have a 100% design completed. So we will have essentially a shovel-ready project for the rest of it at the time that we can identify that funding.
Yeah, I guess what I just want to say is if we're potentially going to shorten, you know, the amount of street that can be improved because of our current budget, then I don't want to lose sight of what has been promised to the taxpayer. This was through, you know, transportation bond funding. Is it 2017?
Yes.
Yes. So I just have residents here that feel very concerned that they've kind of gotten into last place maybe in these projects and are now losing out on some sections to be improved there. So I just want to kind of bring that to light for our conversation next Tuesday and clarify that we're not making a decision today about these bids. Is that true? We're going to wait until the work session, or?
The action today is to just reject the bid, that the lowest responsible bid that we've received, and that will allow us to re-advertise.
Can I advertise if we don't reject?
Can I add something? I would like to just hold this. We're going to have the work session next Tuesday. I don't want to reject bids right now until we have that work session. A couple things I'm concerned about is when we start talking about scaling, we received a lot of communication from residents about this project, and one really stuck out to me, and she pointed out that this was supposed to be our first roadway redesign that included a multi-use path. And it seems like anytime we have these projects that include multimodal infrastructure, they get scaled or they're last to be built, and our general roadway projects aren't. And I think that that's sending not a great message to the community that wants to be able to bike and walk places. And this is probably one of the fastest growing areas of the city. This particular corridor is still not, I think, reflective of the growth that's happening in the area. We had 3 bids come in around the same price, which tends to signal that that may be the fair market price of the project. And so I would be interested in exploring ways that we can accomplish what was promised to the community in the 2017 Parks Bond. If we have to get creative, that's fine, but I would like to hold this today, have the work session next Tuesday. I know we don't typically vote at work sessions, but we could vote on this next Tuesday at the work session, or it could come back as a special item at the following meeting. But that would be my, I guess, motion.
I have a question. The engineer to estimated bid and the bids that came in, that difference, like from the bond, I guess the bond was only set for roughly 16 million?
Somewhere around in there, I believe.
Okay, all right, so we're talking about all the money that was originally set aside. All that money is still there, still exists. It's just that due to costs of everything and no telling what they'll be tomorrow with these new taxations that's coming on board, that this is kind of where we are with these numbers.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we've had a motion, but
I'm
no
going to second.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, so we will talk about it next week.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thank you. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Bynum Walter, Raleigh Planning and Development. I bring regrets today from the chair and vice chair of the Planning Commission who are out of town and feeling poorly. So they are both sorry they cannot be here. As usual, we have a list of upcoming holidays. I do not believe any of these actually conflict with any of your scheduled meeting dates, but we do keep them in front of you for awareness. We have some upcoming public hearings that are already scheduled. So March 18 in the afternoon meeting, we have 3 items that will be in front of you. The rezoning on Nowell Road, text change to zoning conditions on Lewisbury Road, and then also that street plan on South Hall Road. There's nothing on the April 1 agenda at this time in the afternoon or evening. So we have 4 items coming out of Planning Commission with the recommendations for you today. They are all suggested for public hearing on April 1st at the evening meeting. The first item is 1400 Edwards Mill Road, more commonly known as the Lenovo Center. So this is a request to rezone from commercial mixed use with a 12-story height limit to a planned development. A planned development is a custom district. Essentially, the applicant defines the regulations. They have opportunity to make some adjustments to the Unified Development Ordinance regulations to make them less restrictive. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use map, and Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously. The second item is on Litchford Road. This is less than an acre, and it's going from R4 to R6 with conditions. It also is consistent with the future land use map and the 2030 comprehensive plan. Planning Commission recommends approval. I believe the anticipated use here is townhouse development. And then the last 2 items are both on Pearl Road. This first piece is just under 4 acres. This is R10 with conditions. Just the conditions are changing. That's all that's changing here. But it's part of a larger R10 with conditions district. So it will be a map change. It'll create a new R10 with conditions district. Again, consistent with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission recommends approval. And then the second item on Pearl Road, this is just under 5 acres, going from R4 to R10 with conditions. Again, consistent with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission recommends approval. Can I answer any questions for you before you make decisions about scheduling public hearing?
Questions? Counselor Patton.
Hi. C46? Yes. I think I read in the staff report that this eliminates conditions for some amenity areas, and I just wanted to make sure that they're being reproduced somewhere else. And like, are they now covered in the code or something?
That's my understanding. So I believe the condition you're referencing requires a tot lot, which from an enforceability perspective is kind of interesting. It specifies a 5,000 square foot tot lot. How many swings would make it a tot lot? I'm looking at my former, that's a rhetorical question.
You don't want me to answer that question.
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question. But what the code would require would be an amenity area with the townhouse use here. And that would be a percentage of the square footage of the development area. Assuming it's a full-blown full redevelopment, they would have to meet the open space requirements, which at 10%, I think works out to about 3 times the 5,000 square foot requirement.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to put out there, I'm prepared to move forward for the April 1st date for Z3824. That's the Lenovo Center rezoning, 1400 Edward Mill Road. I did want to note that I met with about 25 fourth graders today at the Raleigh School. They're close by, and they gave me this leaf just to remind us that they've got a lot of woods and Richland Creek that they're thinking about, and so they want to make sure that that particular development considers their needs. So we might see them at the public hearing, I don't know. But I also wanted to request a Transportation and Transit Committee meeting on March 27th to talk about broader transportation issues in this area. So not specifically about this rezoning case, but rather status of current projects. So like Blue Ridge Road, all the changes that are coming, just any issues that are kind of already being tackled in that area. I know we're going to see the TIA with 1400 Edwards Mill Road, and I find it helpful to better understand just the lay of the land, so just a general kind of digest of what we see in this area. I know there's others like Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance that would like to, provide some information about traffic issues that they have been navigating or identifying. And so I just want to have a broader conversation before we have the public hearing, if y'all are amenable, so that we have kind of a sense of the context.
My daughter went to the Raleigh School. It's very cute and lovely there. I'm happy to receive that into Transportation Committee. We have no items pending, so our next meeting and before the public hearing would open would be March 27th from 3 to 5 in council chambers.
The only thing, just as a caution, staff met this morning, and it is highly unlikely that if you meet on the 27th, that we'll have the TIA studies for the 2 areas that are under review right now. So you'll be meeting, but there will probably be another need for a meeting. So just don't want people to have a bunch of questions that we're not going to be in a position to answer by the 27th. And Ralph Ritchie can answer. Kenneth Ritchie, I'm sorry. Kenneth Ritchie can answer any of those questions about the return date on those TIAs.
And is that specifically about the rezoning case or a TIA for something else?
It's the the adjacent and adjoining property in that vicinity. Kenneth, are you in here? Yeah.
Good afternoon. Kenneth Ritchie with Transportation. So yes, the TIA would be specific to the Lenovo rezoning. Obviously, Councilmember Harrison understanding you're kind of looking at a broader picture of what's going on in Blue Ridge, maybe not so much Lenovo.
Yeah, correct. And if we're not ready to talk about the TIA on March 27th, that's just fine. Yeah, that can wait till the public hearing. All right.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, or do we have motions?
I move for the public hearings to be in the evening session of April 1st.
Second. Okay. Any other discussion? discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. Passes. All right, next we have special items. And we have council contingency. We had 2 items on the request, Mayor Pro Tem Fort and Councilmember Jones. Do y'all want to talk about these issues? Or make a motion?
Well, I guess my question, under the new process, has all the due diligence been achieved for my item?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council and mayor. Yes, or both items, all due diligence has been done. They would not show up on the agenda if it had not. So you all feel free to vote.
And I'll just jump in really quick just to say the NC Vibes is 5,500 for Women's Day event that's happening this weekend. I'm really excited to participate and to, during Women's History Month, be able to amplify their voice.
Okay, and I will say for the 8th annual Evolve Mentoring Summit, Evolve is a group here locally in Raleigh that does mentoring for middle school and high school kids, and they're doing a annual summit and luncheon that they have every year, and I think one of their funding sources dried up, so we're able to step in and fill in the gap at their request. So happy to support that in our youth.
You want to make a motion?
Sure. Do I have to do? Should I do both or just mine?
You can do both.
Okay. Make a motion that the council approve the funding council contingency allocations for Evolve Mentoring and NC Vibes.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, that passes. Report and recommendation of the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is probably the longest list this year, and then we have one add-on at the end, as always. The first item is site improvement funding for East College Park townhomes. We have Jess Brandis with Housing and Neighborhoods here, and this is a continuation of our support and funding for East College Park.
Good afternoon, Jess Brandis with Housing and Neighborhoods. Today I'm recommending funding for site improvements for the East College Park Townhome Site 4. How do I? There we go. I'll cover the background, the funding need, and a recommendation. In 2016, the city issued an RFP to select a builder to develop townhomes on 5 city-owned sites in the College Park neighborhood as part of the city's East College Park Revitalization Initiative. The goal of that RFP was to facilitate the construction of attractive, affordable, sustainable, and energy-efficient townhomes to be made available for first-time home ownership opportunities. In alignment with the mission of the East College Park Initiative, the city sought to promote mixed income development through the process such that at least 60% of the units created would be reserved for purchase by lower moderate income buyers earning no more than 80% of the area median income. The remaining 40% of units would be made available to purchase by non-income restricted or market rate buyers. All buyers, regardless of income, must be first-time home buyers. Additional background, then in 2019, City Council approved the selection of Evergreen Construction Company to serve as the builder and purchaser of the townhome sites. This is commemorated through a purchase and sale agreement that was drafted in 2020 and approved. The agreement did not include funding to directly support the development of the townhomes. In the time since the agreement was executed, significant construction cost increases stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic substantially delayed the project and ultimately rendered the project infeasible as initially contemplated. In late 2023, city staff identified federal Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, that could be made available to support site improvements in order to move the project forward. In 2024, due diligence, including a HUD environmental review, was completed to allow the CDBG funds to be used for this purpose. And today, staff is requesting council to enter into a grant agreement with Evergreen Construction Company to provide up to $448,733 to fund site improvements. This contribution is necessary to fill the financing gap on the project so that the 6 townhomes can be built. Here is a summary of the funding need. The sources of funds are the sale of those townhomes and this request for gap financing. The uses are below that and include purchasing the site work, construction, professional fees, financing, and sales costs. The recommendation is to approve the conditional commitment of $448,733 in community development block grant funds to pay for site work on the East College Park Townhome Site 4 to support the development of 6 townhome units to benefit first-time homebuyers, including 4 low and moderate income buyers, and to authorize appropriate city officials to execute necessary documents related to the funding.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Couple. So thank you for the presentation. I know when we did the first phase of this project, we've ran into some issues as far as some homes that were built out of scale and things of that nature. Will we have the proper oversight and everything needed so that we don't have any repeats of past errors? You may not have been here when that happened.
That predates Jess, so the answer is
was.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We had several staff changes since that time.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, as far as the sale, I see the 80% AMI. Is that our new limits based on HUD?
Yes, those are based on the HUD limits.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions, or is there a motion?
Move to approve the conditional commitment and authorize appropriate city officials to execute the necessary documents.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. All right, next
Okay.
week.
Next item, we have Bring in Neighbors Home Pilot Program Update. We have Emma Sutton with Housing and Neighborhoods to present this item.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Emma Sutton, Housing and Neighborhoods. We're here to talk to you today about an update on the Bringing Neighbors Home pilot. As a reminder, Raleigh taxpayers spend somewhere between $38,000 and $98,000 per day on homelessness. That's akin to paying for 2 to 5 years of rent in Raleigh every single day, and that's just to manage the problem, not to actually resolve it. Today, we will discuss the different way that the city is investing in sustainable and efficient solutions to homelessness. The Bringing Neighbors Home model is not only cheaper than the status quo, it's also a way to actually end homelessness at its root. We'll start with background information on root causes and just how expensive homelessness really is. We'll dive into the Bringing Neighbors Home model, the current status of the pilot program and early findings from implementation, and we'll discuss the holistic community-wide planning initiative the city is leading to address unsheltered homelessness at scale. The Bringing Neighbors Home framework consists of a pilot program designed to give a proof of concept for an innovative approach to ending homelessness that provides a rapid response to people with urgent health and safety needs living outside, as well as a solution to homelessness, as well as a broader community planning initiative that weaves together expertise and resources from a network of public and private partners to include people with lived experience and expertise. People attribute homelessness to mental illness, drug use, welfare, weather, and a host of other factors, but research shows that while mental illness and drug use are triggering issues and risk factors, that the only credible link is housing market conditions. Places with high rents and few available housing units have higher rates of homelessness than places where rents are cheaper and vacancies are more abundant. Places with some of the highest rates of homelessness, places with some of the highest rates of substance use and mental illness, like West Virginia and Tennessee, have very low rates of homelessness because their housing markets are lower cost. Because homelessness is about affordability, therefore it can be ended by lowering costs and/or increasing incomes so that people can afford their rent. Ignoring or just managing homelessness is expensive and costs more than offering a sustainable solution. The city's Parks Department and the State Department of Transportation reported spending more than $200,000 each on camp cleanup within a year's time. Last November, Dallas released a report that showed taxpayers pay a total of nearly $194 million every year on homelessness between medical treatments, hospitalizations, emergency sheltering, mental health services, incarceration, and emergency room visits. On the other hand, paying for someone to rent their own apartment and for professional case management included is about $24,000 per year per person. The Bringing Neighbors Home pilot is informed by successful models in Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, and Oklahoma City, and a growing number of other cities. Our pilot combines proven models to quickly respond to urgent health and safety needs for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness and avoid expensive camp clearing. It includes rapid rehousing model, which is a research-backed intervention that moves people experiencing homelessness back into housing and provides case management support to ensure they stay stably housed. A housing-focused camp decommissioning framework that is built on the work done in cities like Houston and Dallas that were able to drastically reduce homelessness camps in a matter of years by connecting camp residents directly with housing and supportive services, as well as direct housing assistance. This is a tool that has been highlighted by HUD as a way to overcome administrative barriers within voucher programs that can prevent people from using their vouchers. Direct housing assistance provides a rapid response and allows for the fastest way to move folks from vulnerable, dangerous, and at risk of closure outdoor spaces into housing. This work began last May when City Council approved funding for the pilot, a concept that was originally introduced at the council retreat last January. Requests for proposals, or RFPs, were issued over the summer to identify partners, and in September, the pilot team was fully assembled. The pilot team includes Sagrado Strategies, which is a consulting firm that acts as the project management entity. Healing Transitions and Oak City Cares provide outreach and case management. Ascent Populi is a financial administration and data systems partner, and the University of Pennsylvania's Housing Initiative is our evaluation partner. The camp across from Healing Transitions on Dix Park property was selected as the focus of the pilot due to elevated health and safety conditions at that site, and engagement with camp residents began in October. Pilot enrollment began in November, and in early December, assistance and intensive case management began. Finally, in January, the camp was successfully decommissioned after all residents had been enrolled in the pilot. All 45 households enrolled in the pilot have moved into housing or have an active housing plan in place with their case manager. Everyone is also engaged in case management provided by Healing Transitions and Oak City Cares, with additional support being offered by Acorns and Alliance Health. Beyond the improvements in health and well-being benefits we've seen for pilot participants, which we'll describe shortly, the pilot has allowed 2 people to reunite with their children. No one wants their kids to live outside or in a place unfit for human habitation, and providing the resources to get people housed means that they can have a home they can offer their children and live together as a family again. Here's a quick video recap of the pilot and the work we've done so far.
Everyone needs a place to call home. That's where the City of Raleigh's innovative Bringing Neighbors Home pilot program comes in. It was put into play recently with a homeless camp at Dix Park. Our team is helping 45 households find permanent housing.
We have one individual, it's actually him and his wife, and they've struggled, they just got in a rough spot, and they ended up living in the woods. We were able to bring them on the pilot. They were so ecstatic to understand the benefits they'd be getting. They've been able to reconnect with their family. They were able to get a car. He was able to go to work and get a job.
Bringing Neighbors Home also teams up with community partners to provide access to crucial services like healthcare, job training, and mental health support.
Walking someone through this experience made me feel like I had won the lottery. It gave me great joy to see the tears, of joy.
It's great to have an experience and see individuals that's in an encampment that really wanted some type of supportive housing.
This program doesn't just change lives, it also saves money. Studies show that stable housing can save taxpayers up to $70,000 per person each year by reducing emergency services and healthcare costs. Raleigh is taking a proactive approach using resources to end homelessness rather than just manage it.
Bringing Neighbors Home project means so much to me. This is a project that we've never seen before, and I never seen before. It gives an opportunity not only for our encampments, but also a step towards conquering homelessness.
We are able to be a part of bringing somebody into a place where they can say, I want to go home, or I'm home now.
Bringing Neighbors Home is revolutionary because it's different. It's giving people autonomy to make decisions. It's giving them support, and it's providing them a way out. When people found out they were on the pilot, they were ecstatic, crying, smiling. It was really an incredible thing to be a part of.
The Bringing Neighbors Home pilot program proves what's possible when the city invests in its people. It's more than just housing. It's hope, stability, and a fresh start. Everyone needs a place to call.
Thank you. Now we'll walk through some of the preliminary findings we're seeing. Already, we're seeing an impact of this housing-focused approach. People's well-being is improving, and more people are successfully transitioning into housing than we have seen when no financial assistance or case management support is offered. The tools being deployed in the pilot, rapid rehousing, strategic camp decommissioning, and direct housing assistance, are backed by the research and proven in other communities. If scaled, the approach demonstrated through the pilot would get Raleigh to what we call functional zero for unsheltered homelessness, which means that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. Instead of just displacing people, we are providing real solutions. Housing first and foremost with the right supports in place. As we move forward, we must continue to build a system that meets people where they are and offering a range of solutions tailored to individuals' needs. And the work we're doing now is laying the groundwork for a long-term sustainable response to homelessness in our community. I want to highlight how this work is a true team effort. Every step of the way, we've had incredible partners with us who are deeply committed to the vision of making a meaningful impact to end homelessness in our community. These are just some of our partners on our pilot launch day. It was a very exciting day. Our motto is, it's go time for this group. So, as a part of this work, we held 3 pop-up resource events to engage with camp residents and enroll them in the pilot, as well as connect people with other resources between the times of November and January. These events involved a dozen partners who brought food, healthcare, and other resources directly to the camp. These partners quickly raised their hands to help and have been essential to the pilot's success so far. We were blown away by how quickly our partners jumped at the opportunity to participate in these events and collaborate with us in this pilot. The level of collaboration and dedication we've witnessed through the course of this pilot has been truly incredible. We've seen this pilot truly galvanize this community around this issue and allow for deeper collaboration between agencies serving our most vulnerable neighbors. No one embodies this better than our partners at Healing Transitions and Oak City Cares, who are on the ground every day working with pilot participants to get them into housing and to connect them to the supports they need in order to remain stable in housing. Housing is so much more than a roof overhead. It's freedom and it's safety. These are just a couple of quotes from our partners on that. It's a source of joy and hope, an opportunity to bring family and loved ones together, and a powerful medicine to heal both physical and emotional ailments. We already have incredible stories of people reuniting with their families to include their children and their grandchildren, stories of health issues getting better almost immediately and continuing to improve. People also getting full-time jobs, transportation. It's incredibly difficult to build a life without a safe place to call home. Holding a job, addressing physical and mental health, and achieving stability is extremely challenging without access to basic sanitation, a place to prepare food, and somewhere to rest safely. as demonstrated here in these quotes. So our next steps for the pilot. Now that we have launched the first phase of the pilot and decommissioned the Good Street Camp, we're setting our sights on next steps. Last summer, City Council approved funds to serve an additional 5 households living downtown. We're working closely with the Downtown Raleigh Alliance, as well as Raleigh Police Department officers and Acorns, who are engaged with people experiencing homelessness downtown to establish and begin this next phase. In parallel with the hands-on work being done through the pilot, the city has been leading a community-wide planning initiative to address unsheltered homelessness, weaving together expertise and resources from a network of public and private partners, as well as people with lived experience and expertise. The Bringing Neighbors Home Planning Initiative is a comprehensive effort driven by a 48-member steering committee representing a diverse array of partners from state and local government, health and service providers, nonprofits, foundations, businesses, and people with lived experience and expertise. The work of the steering committee kicked off this fall, and in just a few short months, the group has met a half dozen times, both virtually and in person, for thought partnership and sharing of expertise to address the issue of unsheltered homelessness. The team has overseen the development of a thorough needs and gaps assessment of the current homeless response system, shared protocols and tools for resolving camps by bringing housing and services to bear, and a final plan to implement these strategies and tools. And all of these tools have been thoughtfully reviewed by the steering committee to include feedback and guidance from people with lived expertise and experience. So our next steps, the February meeting is centered around guiding the future role of the steering committee and determining next steps for implementing the final plan. A key component of these next steps will be integrating the work of Bringing Neighbors Home into the Raleigh-Wake County Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care is the official body tasked with addressing homelessness in our community. Another key component is resource allocation. Fully realizing the strategy laid out in the Bringing Neighbors Home plan is not possible without additional housing resources and funding to support this work. Our system does not currently have what's needed to achieve functional zero for unsheltered homelessness, but with the right investment, this plan will lay out a pathway for us to get there. And we will be coming back to you to present information about this plan that is still in draft form, as well as talk with you all about the resource gaps identified in the plan. I just want one last thing to note is that I was invited to present at the National Alliance to End Homelessness Conference last week on the Bringing Neighbors Home pilot. So it is getting a national spotlight. The executive director of the National Alliance, in fact, called out the city of Raleigh as a bright spot in the country for doing innovative work around unsheltered homelessness in the opening plenary. So it was a real honor to be a part of that. And with that, I will take questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Questions?
Not really a question. I just want to say just thank you. Thank you for being innovative and reaching out, but also bringing partners and having a plan for this to continue. This was a pilot. That means there's more work to be done, more resources we may need to put in, but also resources from others, nonprofits, other organizations to put in this scalable. As long as we bring in the proper resources.
Thank you.
Councilor Patton.
Hello. Hi. As I said at the retreat, but not everyone watches the retreat. This is like really excellent work here. Councilmember Jones and I were at the Good Street Camp during the last of the cards being handed out, and the trust felt from the community that has like reasonable reasons to be distrustful of programs was really clear. Like there was just a lot of elegance in the ease and hearing people talk about like, yeah, I got my card and then I just went on my phone and searched up an apartment and then I got it. I mean, that's what we want. So just really hats off to you. Between this work and the opening of Kings Ridge, really good things happening for our unhoused residents here. I just want to confirm I heard the right quote at the beginning of the presentation. You said homelessness is costing the taxpayers $16,000 a day. Is that what you said?
I believe that was the math. Yes, it's like, right, so it's somewhere between $38,000 and $98,000 per day, and so that's akin to paying 2 to 5 years of rent every single day.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure I'd heard that right. And then I wanted to ask if I'm not putting you on the spot too much, have you asked for this to be included in the upcoming budget?
So we are in, I think, we're really in still the refining and discovering and refining and learning stages of the pilot. We really want to make sure that these 45 residents have what they need in order to remain stable and ongoing stability in housing. We will be coming back to you, like I said, with the resource gap that the Bringing Neighbors Home plan has defined. And so that will sort of give an idea of where we are and what the resources are needed in order to address it. Did that answer?
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, I will, we would love to see a continuation of this program baked into the budget. Well, I'll speak for myself. I would love to see that. And then this program is getting attention. Every time I post about it, my DMs fill up on social media with folks saying, hey, I could benefit from this program. Hey, I am unhoused. Can you get me one of these cards? And obviously it's not that clear, but what, I don't know, what guidance do you have, or for those of us who are getting tapped by people who would like to benefit from this program, like, where should we be sending them? What should we be, what words of comfort can we offer them, et cetera?
Yeah, we receive those as well, as you can imagine, and we point them to the existing available resources, because unfortunately the funding that we have for the pilot will only allow us to serve so many folks, and so we are pointing folks into coordinated access and those sort of traditional resources that are available in our community. The county provides the Bridge to Home program through a lot of nonprofits in the area, so we point to that. That provides some flexible funding for folks to be rehoused. But basically just what we have, the traditional sort of continuum of care options. Yes, for coordinated access.
Yep. Councilor Jones.
Again, thank you so much for your work and congratulations on speaking. I'm super excited to hear about that. Your work is just evident. It's fantastic. But I really do appreciate in your presentation, my brain was sitting here going, is this a smaller version of continuum of care? Like, I feel like we're starting that. And then you connected that. So like, I didn't even have to, oh my God, thank goodness she read my mind. So I really appreciate the work on how are we partners with the county, because I wish Raleigh could solve it, but Raleigh can't do it on its own. And so that bigger COC will hopefully have more answers and more resources that we can't solely provide. So thank you for including that, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
A question. You talked about the planning initiative and this report that you referenced to Councilor Patton. When will we see that plan and the gap of resources and services?
I'm not sure when that is scheduled. I think we're looking at work sessions in the future to make sure that we're able to come back to you with that, as well as the draft affordable housing plan, which are linked to each other. So we will have a session, I believe a work session, where we're coming back to you and presenting both of those draft plans to get your feedback.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you again.
I just want to shout out staff, City of Raleigh Housing and Neighborhood staff that have made this all happen too. It's not just me, it's a true teamwork. So thank you very much.
All right. Next, we have Carrie Painter to present the next item, which is the Convention Center Expansion Project, Phase 1, CMAR.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Carrie Painter, Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Complex. I'm going to just flash back for a minute or two to level set where we are. We have some new faces at the table, so I thought I'd review a few dates before we move forward with our request today. In August 2023, we received our funding from the Interlocal Fund. That's the Hotel and Prepared Food Tax. Just, I know there's a short form there. In January 2024, the council approved our architect team choice. And in April, we moved forward with our construction manager at risk concept, and we chose the CMAR. Just a reflection, we had a spectacular season. You caught us a little bit mid-season, but now we've finished it up, and I thought it would just be fun to reflect. We had 50-plus shows, and as always, we managed to punch well above our weight with artists like Lainey Wilson and Chapel Roan, who left us and moved on to greater festivals and Madison Square Gardens, and so we were very lucky. We had $33 million in total economic impact from the efforts at the AMP, and over 192,000 people. The rink, which is a quirky little thing that we get to do at the holiday season, really does make a difference downtown, and so these are some of the odd statistics we were able to rent. I thought you might find humor in 242 igloo rentals. So people are still getting a chance to get feet on the street in the winter. And so we also do a lot of charitable work that we've talked about in the past. And aside from the regular standard work we do every day, which is, people operating concessions and veteran ticket programs and the Great Raleigh Cleanup, et cetera, we've always hosted Band Together for 13 years. And so this was the 14th, which we're super proud of. But we also got to do a concert, Music for the Mountains, which was for the relief efforts, and Carolina Days, Get Out the Vote, which we'd not had before. So that was wonderful to be able to make a difference in our community. So I thought it might be fun to see where we are at this point in design, with the caveat that things are still being value engineered and will change a little, but it might be fun to take a virtual walk together. So this is the view. The view coming into the new entertainment district we're pretty excited about as we come down the street. It gives you the idea of how all the buildings connect. And now we're on the street together. So this is at the very beginning on McDowell, headed up towards the parking structure on your right and the convention center thereafter. This is the first gate to, and the box office will be down at this end. Gives you an idea of the look on the street. We have taken effort to change the texture of the sidewalks and your entrances just to give a little bit of feeling when you are needing that texture to find it, and also attractiveness. The trees were an interesting discussion at our DRC conversation. They are fulsome trees, and the reason is because they actually provide some acoustic help. So the parking deck right across the street has lots of concrete and stairwells, and the sounds will bounce around, and so we need to find ways to keep that sound within the amp itself. And so not only are the trees beautiful, but they provide an acoustic treatment. We head up to the corner with bike racks and benches. And we are nearing where you can see will be the new convention center with the walk over the street. And then this is looking at it from the convention center that exists right now with the new LED that we're working on and the view from the corner. We turn up Lenore. The fence is louvered, and just as a fun little statistic, it's louvered at 7 degrees because it too provides acoustic needs. And so some of the little things you can't see become purposeful, as well as security and safety. We get up to the corner, and we're at Gate 1. This is across from the new convention center on Lenore. And then this is the gate that takes the loading trucks in backstage from Lenore. We always have to see what the artist sees. So this is standing on stage as an artist. The lights are starting to dim because our architects are very clever. And here we are at night because, of course, it's an amp and you need a night view. So we're happy to share the progress. The outside perimeters, the landscaping, the seating areas are pretty close to being set. The building is still a little bit under engineering, as we said, but we are excited to say that we are making progress. So with that, we have completed the design review commission. It took us 2 months to get through, and we're excited to be completed that. We moved to the Board of Adjustments. We now have a special use permit to actually build an amp, which is a great important detail. And we're headed towards the closing of South Street. You've seen some of the communication already going out. We're working with the communications department on a very robust plan. It has been posted on social and already in the news and in the newspapers. It's on all our websites, but we will continue to be sure with postings and signage and digital signage to make sure that people are well aware in advance that it is going to close. It works out really well because it's also right before the beginning of the season, so people can adjust to timing and different ways to get there. And the connector lane, which we discussed much about in the summertime, is still in discussion with NCDOT. I want to remind everybody, it's on all of our websites as well as the city's website, just so we can keep people up to date who might have some thoughts or questions or want to look at facts. And so with that, I bring you to today, which we're really excited about, which is the first GMP #1 to get us actually starting to move on this project beyond paper. So we're asking to authorize the city manager to execute the construction services amendment with Clancy and Thays, Skanska, and DA Everett, a joint venture construction manager at risk with a guaranteed maximum price of $3.125741 million, and to authorize a transfer amendment from our funds to cover such GMP1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to Ms. Painter. Questions, Councilor Jones?
Hi, thank you so much. I did want to just touch on the connector street. I know you said that you are still in discussion with DOT. How is that going?
Yes, the designs are at 65% last submission. So they've gone in, they've come back, now they're in at 65%, then they'll get comments, bring them back, and then go in at 90.
Fantastic. And then if that is hopefully going to go approved, do we have a timeline of when we would know?
I'm going to call a friend from transportation, Kenneth.
Probably Kenneth Ritchie. Got it right the first time this time, right?
So as those discussions are continuing forward, we'd anticipate that it's going to follow a very similar schedule to the permitting schedule they have for the amphitheater. Given the timing, we are looking at trying to align those schedules completely.
So we don't know exactly. We're just trying to.
We don't know exactly, but typically as we see these with regular development projects, this 65% stage gives DOT the ability to give some initial comments that we will continue to refine as we go through the overall kind of site plan review process.
And will you guys will come in and update us as we hear back from that to make sure we're on the same page?
Certainly, we can provide the council an update.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Patton.
Hello. So I know this is about Red Hat, but the convention center expansion is obviously intertwined with this. And I think the last time we discussed this as a council body, there was a public survey out for the 3 designs. My husband is anxiously awaiting to see if his vote is the one that won the hearts of Raleigheites. Will you be providing us a convention center update soon or in the future?
Soon might be the pivot word there, but I will be providing one. We are still designing. I can tell you that a whole lot of people liked curvy. Few liked edgy. No one liked this forward spaceship-looking one. But you would see a lot of curvy worked into it if that happened to be his favorite. But the comments were great, and it's interesting because I was just rereading them a couple days ago, thinking how have we done with addressing some of the people's thoughts. So it was really wonderful to get those. We are working on it. We are definitely value engineering and still budgeting and drawing. But as soon as there's anything that we feel like we can sort of stand behind, we'll get back to you.
We got Mayor Pro Tem's Fort and then Councilor Silver.
And this is a little bit of a side nugget, but it's good to know that one of the companies in the joint venture is actually a minority-owned company, so that helps us with some of our diversity and inclusion goals as it relates to our projects. So appreciate that being a portion of it.
Thank you.
I understand the actions before us today. The previous council did approve for this project to move forward. Personally and professionally, I'm still struggling with the closure of South Street. I recognize I cannot abstain, so to stay consistent with my beliefs and values, I feel I cannot vote yes, but I understand this project is moving forward. Again, I went back and forth. I think we had some previous conversations. I'm struggling with that closure, but I fully recognize this project's going to move forward. I just want to explain my no vote before we officially go on the record.
Yep. Councilor Lambert Melton.
I'm just ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I'm just going to say I move to authorize the recommended action in the agenda material.
Second.
Any other discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Opposed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Attorney, that was good?
And next, we have the annual report for the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. Will Shoemaker from Transportation is here to present this item.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Will Shoemaker with the Transportation Department. Again, as the city manager said, going to be discussing the NTMP, or the Neighborhood Traffic Management, our annual report. In this presentation, we're going to split it up into 3 sections, with the first 2 being policy-driven, where it's going to be information, it's going to be some action, setting and approving work plans. And the last part that we're going to discuss today is going to be some potential policy updates. We're a group that talks to literally thousands of Raleigh residents, and with that comes a lot of feedback. And so with that feedback, we're always trying to be responsive to the needs, make sure that what we're putting out there is being understood, effective, and efficient. So this is our opportunity to come to you to share some of those opportunities to improve, expand, make sure that this program is what the community says that they want, that they need. So to lead it off, it's really what is traffic calming, kind of set the stage. The U.S. Department of Transportation has a very technical definition, but really what it is, it's just putting in signs, markings, features to make sure that people are going the speed limit and behaving appropriately as they're driving. Raleigh's response to that traffic calming need was to establish the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program in 2009, and it set up 3 buckets. The first being multi-way stop conversions, that is to improve intersection safety. The second being speed limit reductions, where it is setting appropriate speeds and setting that expectation along local streets. And the last and most impactful is to have a traffic calming project bucket that allows us to go in and physically change the geometry of the street whenever regulatory signage and marking is not working.
Could you state again which year that was adopted?
2009. And so the vision of the NTMP is we want to improve safety, improve compliance, speed compliance, and really enhance the quality of life along all of Raleigh's residential streets and in every neighborhood. This first part is informational only. As you can see, the number of requests we've had by quarter, we were down year over year about 38%. The main driver of that reduction is the speed limit reductions. That number, that request volume has significantly dropped off. A little foreshadowing here, we're going to be touching on that in the policy updates to see if that's something that you want to tweak so that we can get those numbers back up to continue our efforts. And since the last time that I was up here on January 2nd, 2024, we've had 15 projects actively under construction right now. And then we've been working with our partners in roadway design and construction, where we have 17 more projects that are stamped and sealed and are going to bid April 1st, so here in about a month. Another informational only slide. We have about 3 of these where we completed, I think it was 19 projects, and then we were able to do the after study data. In all instances, we saw positive shifts of vehicles and drivers slowing down to approximately the speed limit. And in most cases, we saw a reduction in volumes as well. But traffic calming is all about reducing speeds and reducing crashes. It is not about a volume reduction. If people want to drive there, they can. They just need to obey the speed limit. I do want to call out Councilmember Patton. Last time we were talking about a couple of these streets. Harps Mill Road saw a pretty significant drop of, I'm going to round because I'm going to do some math here, about 3,000 vehicles a day. And the worry that we're going to be pushing those 3,000 vehicle trips to surrounding streets. We did see that about 1,000 of those went to parallel streets, 60-40, 70-30, that split. But we really were encouraged to see that 2,000 of those trips through the neighborhood evaporated. We really encourage people to stay on the thoroughfares instead of cutting through the neighborhoods to speed and abuse to get where they're going. So we're encouraging people to go where they need to go, or use the streets that are designed to carry higher volumes, higher speeds, as opposed to our intended lower volume, lower speed streets. And to add even more interest to that, Thorpeshire is to the north. It has an approved project that was constructed and completed in February, so just last month. And then Hunting Ridge Road to the south is part of that April 1st bid package. So it's going to be really interesting to see if more of those trips go down, or if there are just more neighborhood people choosing slightly different routes, and see how that really settles in. The next part is going to be some recommended action from you. We're going to look at the ballots, so the 20 streets that we worked with throughout 2024, so that you can better visualize when I say on-street versus neighborhood. The blue going in is the on-street folks, so if your property touches the street, you're considered on-street. And then the greater neighborhood is approximate 2 blocks surrounding the street receiving a project, or if your main access is off that street. So it's really trying to get the area and the main user groups to participate and vote in that. Of the 20, 13 streets met all policy thresholds, so we're going to be requesting or recommending that council approve these 13 streets to move forward to construction activities. We'll spend the rest of this year doing survey work, construction document generation with an expectation that it goes to bid in 2026. Of those 27 did not meet the policy recommendations. You can see them here. With the traffic calming group, with the thresholds that exist and why it's set up, there's some administrative approvals that we can just go through. Ultimately, you have to approve that, but that's just administratively. But part of this, and the reason why we come to you, is so that you can discuss these streets that fail if you feel like you want to look into it and dig any deeper. These are all streets that have quantifiable issues, and just because the neighborhoods voted no does not mean that these speeding or crash issues go away. And to run down the list to kind of set that expectation, Fairview Road, this is the second time that we've offered a project. They voted it down twice, very similar percentages. Last instance was in 2018. North Cliff, this is our first instance of an offering. Arnold Palmer Drive, that neighborhood has been offered projects 3 times. This is the second time this section of the street has been failed. In all instances, they voted no. Brockton, this is the first time we've been there. Falls River Avenue, this is the first time that we've been to that specific section, but because it's a very long, multi-mile street, it had to be split up. We've offered 3 other sections of Falls River Avenue projects in the past, and they've all voted it down. Bent Creek Drive, one up on Falls River I meant to mention. It was extremely close to passing. It was actually only 2 neighborhood yes votes short of reaching that 60% minimum. So it was very, very close if you want to take this into further consideration. Bent Creek Drive is a street that we're going to specifically call out, and staff's going to recommend that you move forward. And that's how it was developed. So this is mainly condos and apartments where the people are there, but then all the land is just open space or HOA land. So the people voted an 82% rate to move this forward, but the land did not participate. We tried to reach out to the property management groups. Again, there's no success with that. I've since talked to at least one of the HOA managers, and he's all for this project. So this is well received by the people there, and we don't want to be punitive because of bureaucratic technicality for that. And then Ramblewood Drive, this is the first time we've offered them a project, but also it's extremely close. We're looking at 2 different scenarios. If we would have gotten 1 additional on-street person just participating, they could have gone yes or no, it would have met policy thresholds to move forward. Or if 2 more neighborhood people would have voted yes. So it's really, those 3 were very razor thin from going from the fail column to the pass column. We have now moving on to set the 2025 work plan. For those that are new to council, this is not a longevity program. This is a worst first program where streets, anyone can make a request. Again, we received on average 100 new requests each year. We evaluate, and if it meets the criteria, we put them on our future project list using a worst first method. As it exists today, these are the 20 worst streets that we are aware of that we're going to be requesting council authorize staff to begin engagement design work. One unique thing about this list is that Quail Hollow Drive is currently in the top 20. We're going to be recommending that council remove that from the traffic calming list. And that is for some very specific reasons. That's not because they don't deserve a project, but because it is part of the Big Branch Greenway connection where the Parks Bond is getting the Greenway up to the bottom of the street. They're doing a feasibility study north to get up to Shelley. So we are going to be recommending and moving this forward through a different group. We will look at including traffic calming, but this is going to be a lot more than just a traffic calming project. instead of leaving up to a vote and with a very specific traffic calming focus, we want to move that to an active transportation that can look at bike lanes, closing sidewalk gaps, traffic calming, and other safety measures.
Could you just describe what gets you points? I'll just use Laurel Hills Road since I used to live on that road. So what would make it get to 146?
Yeah, so for a street to qualify for a project offering, it needs to meet either a speed compliance issue. As of right now, it is defined as 5 miles an hour or greater than the posted speed limit, or 2 speed-related crashes in the previous 3 years. If it hits those 2 metrics, we then take a deep dive. We look at, are there sidewalks, are there schools, are there bike lanes, bus routes, community generators, bodegas, anything that get the people out. And so we have assigned a point value to that correlates to how bad the speed and the crashes are. It's really a sliding scale. So the worse a street is, the higher the point, the worse the street is. And it's a way that we can differentiate between, let's say, 2 streets have identical speed and crash problems, but one has a sidewalk and one doesn't. We feel that the one without sidewalk should be prioritized because people are going to have to commingle in the street. And so it really does try to take a holistic look, assign a point value, and then spit out a total ranking that we can then relatively easily compare street to street that are very different in nature and use patterns.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to wrap up the first kind of 2 parts of my presentation here, staff is requesting council to authorize construction for the 13 projects that met all policy thresholds as part of the 2024 project offering group. With the addition of the Bent Creek Drive project, so it'll be a total of 14 streets. We are requesting that you approve the 20 projects from the 2025 project list so we can begin engagement and design work. And then lastly, we were requesting that council remove Quail Hollow from the 2025 traffic calming project list so that it can be administered at a very similar timeline, same engagement schedule, through a different group. And I have more if you want to make the action now, or we can do this all at the very end.
I can do the action 1 and action 3 now, and that might be easier to clear the decks. I do have some questions about the list of 20 for the year ahead, so that might be impacted by your next set of slides. So I don't know what the will of the council is.
Why don't we just go through the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, we can go through the whole thing, but I mean, if we can go ahead and knock these 2 out, I would say knock them out. So if that's your motion, I second it.
Yeah. So move to authorize the 14 construction projects that met all the 13 that met all the policy threshold, and also Bent Creek, and move to remove Quail Hollow Drive from the traffic calming project list.
Second.
Okay. And then before we vote, I just want to say, I'll just do a disclosure that I do own property on Laurel Hills Road. So I don't think that is a conflict. I'll vote on the motion, but did want to just disclose that. And that we're not voting on that at this second. But for the motion and second, all in favor of those, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, so those pass.
Sounds good. All right, so now we're going to roll into the betterment of the NTMP. So the first thing that we want to look at is we've kind of crested and gone beyond the resident requests, but if we want to continue on with getting the consistent speed on our local streets, that brings us consistent with strategic plan initiative 3.2 and other previous council desires that we're trying to pursue here, it would be to allow staff to proactively start going into communities to lowering the speed limit. We have a lot of data from the 1,000 or so streets that we've worked with. This is a very popular initiative with an average 96+% approval rating. And we've only had 2 streets, so like 0.28% fail, and both of those were very short streets where they communicated they didn't like the look of signs. They wanted the speed limit, but they didn't like the signs. And by statute, we have to put a signs to be able to have the lowered speed limit. So with that, they decided that they would prefer no signs. We're still working with our partners in operations on exactly how we can do this, but where we would start is we would want to look to spread this out through all the districts, start in A, probably go A through E just around and grab chunks. Exactly how many we can get, we're still, again, working that out, but we're really hoping that instead of, as it exists today, kind of a sporadic sprinkling throughout the whole of the city, we can get some economies of scale by going in and focusing on one area, and instead of one crew putting up 5 signs and driving 20 minutes doing a couple more signs, we can just focus on one area and get a lot more and be a lot more efficient at knocking this out. Again, exactly how many that is, we need to figure out what that looks like. And I do want to say that we're not eliminating the ability for folks to reach out to us. That would still be part of that. That is just this is just enabling us to go out and start proactively working through the rest of the city. The second update that we want to bring forward is to broaden the multi-way stop request section, where right now it is purely by the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, an intersection tool, but it really is a catch-all for communities. They just say, you know, how slow do we want people to go? Stop is the slowest that it can be. I'm going to ask for a bunch of stop signs. And unfortunately, the regulations and how the guiding documents don't allow us to do that. And the thing is, stop signs don't really work at actually slowing down drivers. There's a lot of data out there that people can feel unjustly stopped. It can create compliance issues. It can make intersections less safe when we improperly use them. So it's all about using the right tool for the right need. And right now, we're seeing a bunch of people ask for them, and we're identifying that, yeah, there's some improvements that could be made, but the only tool we have is a stop sign. A stop sign is not the right tool. So we're asking council to allow staff to broaden the multi-way stop section of the NTMP policy to be an intersection safety, so that way we can evaluate it, see if there is a better tool to improve the intersection, like curb bump outs, neighborhood traffic circle, median islands, in addition to stop signs, so that we can continue to make our intersection safety and make sure that we're using the right tool for the problems that we are identifying. This one is really about right-sizing the program thresholds and setting better expectations from staff, the resources that we have, and to the community. So right now, the policy threshold is if you qualify for a future project, that means that you have a speed compliance issue of 5 miles an hour or greater than the posted speed limit. We're not touching the crashes, so if you have crashes, that's still going to be a qualifier. But this is just raising that from that 5 or greater to 7. Looking at why we set that to begin with is pre-2021, we were seeing an average of 8 to 12 new streets. For whatever reason, something broke loose and we're seeing 40 plus now streets. So instead of chipping away at that list, and previous councils had told us that they wanted to see a list maintained at about a 2-year wait period, we are not achieving that goal with this 5 mile an hour threshold. So looking at the streets that we have, and then looking at the 7 mile an hour threshold, this would bring us down to about that 30 to 50 streets on the list. Again, I'm not going to say we're going to remove any streets. It's just all new evaluations will be under the new guidance and the new speeding threshold. But looking at the streets that we have as we evaluate and reevaluate, this will help us bring that list down. Again, I don't want to sit here and say that those streets that have that 5 to 7 don't have a problem, but it is setting expectations, because right now the list is over 120 streets. We can do 20 streets a year. We're getting 40 plus new streets, so that it goes from a desired 2-year max wait to a 7, to a 10, to a 15. So it's really, we don't want to sit here and tell people that, hey, your street has a problem. It's going to be 20 years before we get to you. So really, this is just the dial to increase or decrease that threshold, and I have to be here, or my predecessor, or not possessor, I don't know, whoever comes after me, whatever that is, successor, that's the word, has to be here annually. So this will be your opportunity to adjust that dial at an annual basis to make sure that we're hitting that metric. And so again, there's nothing wrong with that current 5 mile an hour or greater mark, but it is setting an expectation that is an ever-growing, ever-lengthening list that we're trying to, set a better message to the community and better communicate the resources that we have currently. And then lastly, it's less of a change because we're not really decreasing the touch points, but it's really clarifying that instead of having a preliminary meeting where we are facilitating a conversation but not really actively making changes, where as it works today is we facilitate conversation, then we meet as a group for a month or two, update the plans, then come back, have another meeting where we facilitate, and then we ballot. We're seeing that it's creating some engagement fatigue where between the preliminary and the final meeting, we're seeing a 125% decrease in the number of views on our materials that we're putting out, and we're seeing a over 12% decrease in participation, where a lot of people continue to tell us, like, we saw it the first time, we want this, why do you keep coming back to us? That's kind of a broad brush summary of the sentiment that we're hearing. So instead of, again, breaking it up over multiple months, we're just changing the language to really clarify that it's going to be those same 3 touch points, but just a continuous effort. So it's going to take a little bit more effort on staff to be active participants, update the plans as we're going. We feel very confident that we can do that based on the level of complexity of these projects, but it's going to be, a couple weeks of engagement where we get feedback, we're updating the plans, and we send another mailer, say, hey, we heard you, come back, let's look at the same thing again, and then hit it with a ballot. So it's really going to be compressing that. Engagement is going to be longer than what we're doing now that's broken up, but it's really just going to be compressed into one continuous effort. And really the hope is that we can sustain or increase that participation throughout the whole process, and hopefully not disenfranchise people or feel that I already told you, yes, I can tune out now. It's going to, we're trying to increase the participation with this. And so the requested action from these are to approve the recommended changes to the NTMP policy to be effective immediately and to go into effect for the 20 streets with the 2025 list that we're recommending as well. And to quickly summarize those, it's authorize staff to have the ability to proactively initiate speed limit reductions, broaden the multi-way stop evaluation portion to be an intersection evaluation portion, raise the traffic calming project qualifying speed threshold to greater than 7 miles an hour, and that will be effective on the 2026 project package, and combine the traffic calming project offering engagement into one continuous effort. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Lots of good information there. Councilor Patton?
Yeah, for sure. In this section of what you need direction from us on, the options 1, 2, and 4 seem I'm amenable to them. Raising the speed threshold feels a little antithetical to Vision Zero goals, knowing that the faster a car is going, the more likely it is to be fatal if there's a pedestrian crash. But I understand that I understand the intention of what you're trying to do is reduce the timeline so that if we've told people there's a problem on their street, we're not also saying we can help you in 10 years. I just need to talk through it a little bit more. So people who are already on the list because they've already been evaluated and they qualified at the 5 mile per hour mark, they would.
We're not going to remove anyone that qualified under the old metric. It will just be, if it's adopted, all future evaluations will be viewed through the lens of the updated speed guidance.
And they could still be put higher on the list than other
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so I guess when you say that, we're taking in 40 new streets per year,
Mm-hmm.
but and how many do you anticipate would qualify if we adopt this policy update?
It will get us back down closer to that historical 8 to 12 average. Is that what we would hope to see? Again, we did this math a couple years ago, and then patterns changed. So again, this is something that we can discuss annually if we're seeing too few streets come on board or too many. This is your opportunity to increase or decrease that dial with regularity and as you see fit.
Okay. So out of the 40 new streets, you're thinking 30 of them-ish are qualifying at that 5.
It would be
They're like
the
in-
10. It'd be the other way. It would probably be 10 of the 40 streets would qualify for a future.
Would continue to qualify.
Yeah,
And 30 are at that 5-mile-an-hour mark, but they would not qualify under the new standards. Okay. I'm still a little itchy about it, but I'll pass the mic.
Counselor Jones.
Hi, thank you. I'm just wondering if, kind of bouncing off of what Councilor Patton is saying, if we don't have seems like the bandwidth to attack all of those projects, would the request not be for increase in funding for your area so that we can? Is that another option? Because as we go out, we're seeing all of these streets, and I feel that we want to enable the departments to be able to do that, but it feels like we're going backwards instead of saying, hey, we see all of these problems and we need more resources in order to accommodate this increase.
Yeah, and that's absolutely another way is just to put more resources. It would take a funding increase to pay for additional projects. And as it exists today, I'm a working manager, so I am very involved in that, but we really only have one full-time resource that manages the vast majority of the day-to-day for the traffic calming. So it would be a corresponding increase in funding to pay for the projects, and we would need additional full-time employees to help us manage the engagement and design and all that stuff.
Do you know a ballpark how many, if we were to maintain the 40 streets that you are currently seeing, how many more staff you would need?
So we're each managing around 10, so one additional person could bump us up to 30 streets offered a year. That would still have us a plus 10 deficit. So I mean, if we really want to knock it out, it'd probably be 2+ additional employees dedicated just to the neighborhood traffic management program to really start seeing not just a status quo, but a decrease in the list length.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to note that as we see these increase, and as you've mentioned, it's going up, clearly these are problems that we need to address that the public is coming to us for. So for me, I agree, Councilor Patton, number 3 sounds like we're going the wrong direction, and I feel like we need to find resources to address the problem.
If I could, I had some questions. You mentioned that would be 2 more in your staff to do the evaluation and put it on a list. But then there's still the construction piece and the implementation of the project. How much additional staff, and I'm sure we put this out for bid and we use contract, but how much additional funding would also be needed on that part? Because I want to look holistically at costs.
Right, and so on the back end, we partner with roadway design and construction to do the project management side, so I don't know if that would mean they would need an additional project manager. I don't know what that threshold is for them, but from a funding perspective, we can get about 20 streets for about $1.5 million. So if we want to, double that, that'd be an annual $3 million cost to do 40 streets through the traffic calming program.
Yep. Councilor Lambert Melton.
I apologize. I may have missed this one. I had to step out briefly. Is there some, I guess, science or math behind the 7-mile-per-hour threshold?
It really is. We look at best practices, and peer municipalities. Let's see. Apex has 7 miles an hour. Cary has a 9 mile an hour. Garner has 8. Burlington has 7. So it seems like 5, 7, and 10 is pretty much the national standards for the thresholds for traffic calming. We went with the lowest one originally, and we're just, again, trying to right size based on the resources that we have now.
That's very helpful. I appreciate that. And just as a layperson, I don't want to tell myself, but I feel like most people tend to go around 10 over the speed limit. And I was just wondering I was just curious if RPD had weighed in on that. But knowing that I'm comfortable with 7, and I would support it. It sounds like it's based on benchmarking, and like I said, I think anything under 10 is what I've personally experienced.
Yeah, Councilor Silver.
I'm also comfortable with 7, particularly as you look at keeping pace with all the requests over time. So I think what you're looking for is how to manage those expectations, so you're not telling someone, you know, this is how long it may take, and we do have to balance resources. Just another question, because I know always looked at, you know, traffic calming, pedestrian, bicycle safety, they're kind of one side of the same coin. And I know you have a program, it was adopted 2009, but is there an understanding about some of the other tools? For example, a lot of residents say we don't want people to park on the street. Well, that slows traffic down as people are going by. Where you plant trees, having those pedestrian crosswalks, hopefully having bike lanes slows people down. The land use is on both sides, so I don't know, well, that's outside of your toolbox. Just want to understand how you prioritize traffic calmings about the car, but what about pedestrian safety and looking at, you know, I had a comment, and I thank the city manager for responding, about just having better lit crosswalks that are painted and not faded out. I understand we just approved in the consent agenda a program to start replenishing those. So just want to understand how you balance traffic calming with bicycle pedestrian safety, because to me the two just work hand in hand. But I'm willing to support the changes to the policy going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question because yeah, they have to go hand in hand all through that. So, you know, traffic calming and the way that we can do so many projects and have a relatively quick turnaround is because we are retrofitting the street and we're staying within the curb lines. We try very hard not to impact stormwater flows, have to dig down and impact catch basins, add impervious, go behind the curb, and that allows us to do so many for a relatively cheap project in the scheme of transportation projects. So that is kind of our main focus, that we stay hyper-focused with traffic calming and just retrofitting the street. That being said, there's a lot of opportunities within that. We, as a city, built very wide neighborhood streets for quite a long time. And for the capacity and the volumes and the use patterns, a lot of those are overbuilt. So we have the opportunity to go back in and, you know, right-size those streets. A great example, this was done through resurfacing, but Donald Ross Drive was an overly wide street where we kept parking on one side, 2 lanes of travel, and then put a cycle track on the other. We have learned from that, and we have copied that model. So Grove Barton Road, that's part of the April 1st bid package, is going to do that as well. Powell Drive is another one where we are reallocating the existing street width to be usable active transportation space. We are having discussions on if that usable space can be made to be ADA compliant, so we can have actual pedestrian space within the street, and we'll have to go in and put vertical delineation. But with the cross slopes and the landing requirements, that gets very tricky very fast. But at a minimum, like on Powell, like on Donald Ross, we were trying to pair sidewalks on one side of the street with a cycle track on the opposite, and then, you know, in the middle, have that street narrowing with traffic calming to really, you know, provide for a safer and complete street.
Just one last.
Okay, yeah.
Not to belabor the point, I definitely would support the 7 miles per hour to try to move this forward and try to get some of the projects that are on the list addressed. One of my questions is, and this may be on the other side of transportation, new subdivisions and new development that are being built, are we working with those developers to build in traffic calming into the original project so we don't have to go back later and do some of the retrofitting?
Absolutely. And so the vision for my group is that we don't want any new street to come online that has a speed compliance issue. I want my job to have an end life, meaning that we've treated all the existing streets. And so with that, we are partnering very closely. In 2021, the council approved the removal of the prohibition that only the NTMP had the authority to do traffic calming. That enabled us to start working with the bike group, with Vision Zero, with private development, to start baking in traffic calming from the beginning. The transportation department is also, well, and I guess the NTMP policy is an internal guiding policy, so there's no real teeth to the development. Through a future street design manual update or UDO change, you know, that would put some regulatory teeth that would require it, and that would be discussed at that time. But we're certainly setting the table to have those discussions, and we're already actively working with a lot of private developers to try to get them to offer up and include traffic calming from the beginning.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so unless there's more questions, you need motions from us here, and then we have to go back to the other section and finish that up. So I'm going to make a motion for the policy updates 1, 2, and 4, and then if we can take option number 3 separately, because I think there's more different opinions on that one. So move to authorize staff to do 1, 2, and 4. I'm not going to read them all out. Second. Okay, any other discussion on that? All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, you want to make a motion on the,
Move to approve 3.
okay, second. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So 2 noes, okay. All right, and now we're going to go back to the previous.
Yep. So I have a couple questions. So my Falls River 3 is one of the ones that you flagged as narrowly missing the mark. And then I noticed that in the approval list for the upcoming year, we've got Falls River 5, 7, and 2. So it has me wondering if Falls River Avenue needs a different approach. Like clearly there's identified issues throughout the street. There's interest, but not universal. It sounds like a different section has come and failed in the past. So talk to me about a more holistic view of Falls River Avenue.
I guess the NTMP policy is not necessarily set up to do it in that way. Again, this is a resident choice opportunity. Through the different iterations, we have offered them humps, we've offered them circles, we've offered them curb bump outs. So we've tried different approaches, learning on what was voted down in the past, and it seems to continually just get voted down. So as long as we maintain with a strategy of resident approval, if past performance is an indicator of future success, the multiple sections of Falls River, your guess is as good as mine if this additional attempt is going to have a different outcome.
Okay. And you mentioned other examples where things that have a traffic calming impact, like adding parking or bike lanes, have been integrated into street resurfacing projects. Is there any chance Falls River Avenue is in line for street resurfacing?
Well, we can do that with traffic calming as well. We do that. I don't know if we know we can get that information for you if resurfacing or when that schedule is up for Falls River Avenue. To riff on that, there's consistent on-street parking out there. That is a form of natural traffic calming, and if you remove it and it's just painted bike lanes, then you're probably going to have the opposite effect, just because it's not anything vertical that really keeps you in the roadway. So I mean, we can continue to look at as many alternative options as we can with that to see what sticks and what this neighborhood desires.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I know you need an answer from us on this list, so I'm happy to approve it at the end of this conversation, but I do think I'd like to send to committee, like just some further discussion on this road, history of past ballots and what was offered to them that failed, and then the one that narrowly missed the mark for now, and then these ones. I think I'd just like to take a little bit of a zoomed out view of the whole street. So that's one thing. And then I also, thinking about the Falls River Avenue that narrowly missed the mark, had me wondering, I read in the policy that when there's apartments present, the ballot goes to the property owner, so the landlord, but I didn't find if the single family, what would happen if the single family home is renter occupied? So who gets the ballot?
So we send it to the physical properties, and then with the apartments, it depends on the makeup of that. If they're individually owned units or individual units, we send it to each one of those. So we try to target those actually living there as opposed to if you're an absentee landlord or if you don't live there, because these projects can go in and be very quickly. We want to impact those that actually live there and use the street as opposed to, mailing somebody that lives in California asking if they want traffic calming for their rental property in Raleigh.
Okay, yeah, great. That's what I was hoping you would say. So anyway, I would like to send Falls River Avenue 3 and along with a broader discussion of the rest of the road to Transportation Committee. Along with that, I'd like to send like a discussion of pros and cons of lowering the approval thresholds, the 60% on-street and the 70% broader neighborhood, pros and cons of and implications of lowering that, just knowing that like civic participation is hard for everyone. I mean, we see low voter turnout even in presidential elections, so just consideration of that. And then at the appropriate time, happy to make a motion to approve the 25 traffic calming project priority list.
Okay, and then we had Councilor Branch and Jones. Branch, maybe off first.
So since we're probably going to have that part in committee, I will ask if we can also look at a wait period for failed roads and projects. And the reason behind that is because if we have a road that keeps failing and we're still trying to figure out, if it's going to meet thresholds or not, you're losing time. You're losing hours on roads and streets that have been approved. Mm-hmm. Are roads that haven't even been looked at because we're going back and repeat. So if we can have that conversation in committee as well of, do we want to set a policy that a road, if it fails maybe twice, then it has to wait a certain time frame before it can be reviewed.
There's a year wait in the policy existing, but we could certainly assess
I just want to review it.
The right.
Yeah, review that policy. And then I had another note. It was around the civic participation. The thresholds, if you can bring the history, we went through all of that before. Yep. So when we have the meeting, if they can bring the history from their previous conversation when we talked about civic engagement, because we've made an adjustment one time before to address those very concerns.
Jones and then
can you go back to Ramblewood? So that one had an 85% street approval, and this is the one that you said missed by like 1 or 2 on the neighborhood approval side. Mm-hmm. If we move Bent Creek, because at an 82% on the other side, is there room to, can you explain to me what the difference is, why we wouldn't send Ramblewood down that same path?
So Bent Creek was moved forward because there was no on-street participation, and it was based on how the land was developed. So all of the units are self-contained within the buildings, and then the land is HOA or property management controlled. And so we reached out to all those property management companies, but got no responses. So the land didn't participate, but the people did, and they voted at that 82% approval threshold. Whereas Ramblewood, it met the on-street approval threshold minimum, but it's a 2-tier system where only 56.52% of the greater neighborhood approved, and for that to be an administrative approval, that needs to be a minimum of a 60% approval.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we go back to the previous slide? So I understand, Councilmember Patton, that this list you want to go to committee to discuss further? Because I'm trying to understand, are we going to see a different list? Will other projects, I just want to understand the purpose for diving deeper. I understand further conversation about the greater than 7 miles per hour, but just want to understand, if this goes to committee, what will be discussed and what could we expect to see as a committee recommendation or comments based on this list?
So I think 7 miles an hour just passed. We just voted on that.
Right, no, I know that. You
So
had
that's
mentioned,
done.
okay.
I think the 7 that you're pinging on is at Falls River Avenue 7. That's when I was
Oh,
saying
okay,
7.
my
So
apologies, okay.
at the end of this discussion, we'll approve this list as it stands, and then the whole of Falls River. You can see that Falls River's on there 4 times.
Correct.
It's on there, or it's on three times on this list, and it's once on the other list, and it's been on the list before. So there's clearly like something going on this road, but rather than treating this as 3 segmented traffic calming projects, I'm asking myself the question, does it need a holistic approach that kind of covers
Understood.
the length of the road. So that's the
That's
committee
clear.
conversation.
Okay, that's clear.
So I guess theoretically after that, maybe this list wiggles a little bit, but we don't know that yet.
And so history is kind of repeating itself a little bit here, where in the past, this similar conversation with Falls River had been had, where the council member at that time made a motion to remove or hold the sections of Falls River to talk about them, approve the remainder of the list. And to rehash that history that was discussed, we went to the community and they voted it down. So again, just providing that brief history that a similar conversation has been had with Falls River along these same lines. And again, just to reiterate, this list is just authorizing staff to go start the conversation with the community. So we're going to be trying to hear what they want. But honestly, not honestly, if you want this to go in to talk to committee, a route forward to not hold up the rest of the list would be to hold number 4, 9, and 13 to go into committee and approve the remaining 17 streets.
And just one last thing for me on that regard, I see that about almost half of the lists are in District E. And so as we move forward, I don't know if this can be for Jonathan Edwards for me, if we can have a conversation so that I am fully aware. That's a lot happening in just one district, and they're not even near each other. They're all over the place. So I would really love to have that conversation to better understand how to explain it to residents as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it is just a coincidence that they're all really clustered in your district. We've done a lot of those metrics in the past, and all districts pretty consistently have about a 16 to 25% share of historical projects offered. And then also, if the managers update on Friday, we just went live with an interactive map that you can go out there and see the historical projects, those in design, and future projects that are eligible. But absolutely, we can work with your policy analyst to make sure you get the information that you need.
Definitely. Thank you.
So, and Councilor Patton, do you want to pull Falls River, or do you want to approve the ones that are on this list?
I think we'll just approve the list as is. And if anything illuminating comes from the committee conversation, we might come back.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Second. All right, so that is for this 2025 traffic calming. All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, I have the absolute joy and pleasure of presenting to some and introducing to others the newest member of the City of Raleigh's management team, Chief Rico Boyce. Thank you. After a national search, we did not have to look very far before we found the best person for the job in this moment. Chief Boyce has risen up the ranks of RPD. And a little known fact about Rico. Rico is an avid cheer dad. So if any of you all know about cheer, you've gotten a little bit of taste of that from me, but he takes it to a whole nother level. So I think that is his stress reliever, his getaway. I don't know how, because it is intense. But we are really happy to have our new chief, Rico Boyce.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council, Madam City Manager, Rico Boyce, Chief of Police. Excited. I'm extremely happy and excited to be the 31st chief here in the city of Raleigh for the Raleigh Police Department. It's a great time to be in the department. It's a great time to be here in the city. A lot of great things going on. I look forward to working with you all and continuing to keep our city safe and vibrant. So I have a lot of energy. I got a lot of ideas. So I'm just ready to get to work. It's been 4 days. I probably haven't slept in 4 days. But I'm super excited. I'm just extremely grateful for the manager selecting me as the chief of police. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report today.
Awesome. All right, so next we have matters scheduled for public hearing, and we have left the one item open, 617 South Blunt.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council. Bryce Abernathy with Housing and Neighborhoods Code Enforcement. This is a continuation from the February 18th council meeting where I brought 617 South Blunt Street. Just a quick recap, there was a fire at the property in August of -- The owner was required to pull all the permits that he needed to make those repairs. That didn't happen. We started our minimum housing case on the property, and up until last week, the permits had not been applied for. I think Councilor Fort had wanted an opportunity to reach out to some community organizations. The only update that I really have is I did speak with the ownership last week for an extensive amount of time, and they have since pulled a plumbing permit in addition to the building that they had already started. So they have building and plumbing that they've applied for. I talked to them again this morning, and they have hired an electrical contractor, and they should be applying for the electrical permit here pretty soon. So there is some movement happening, slow movement.
Well, I did have an opportunity to talk to some folks, and they did make some efforts to contact the owner, but the owner didn't return any of the telephone calls. So I leave it up to the council. I don't know that pulling in plumbing and electric a couple days before is sufficient for most folks. So
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, actually, I reached out as well. It happens that Councilor Fort and I kind of reached out to the same people to talk about this project, and again, there was no movement. So I think at the close of the hearing, one of us will be ready to move forward.
Okay. All right, thank you for the follow-up, and if there's no further, I can't even see where it's over here. I will close the hearing. All right, so is there a motion?
I make the motion to move forward with demolition.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and that passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we have the report and recommendation of various committees, and the only item was on transportation.
Yes. So I was not in attendance, but the Transportation Committee hosted two topics, the high crash intersections as well as pedestrian improvements around East Whitaker Mill and Atlantic. There was a robust discussion and public comment was provided, and the committee moved to recommend the topics out of moved to recommend the topics out with a recommendation that staff provide a budget note to fund the associated costs of there were a handful of suggested remediations for a few intersections, and the committee asked for a budget note. Councilmember Lambert Melton presided the meeting, so you can fill in anything I've left out.
Yeah, there were two unfunded intersections from the first item, and then the second item is that intersection at East Whitaker Mill Road and Atlantic Avenue. Committee recommended that we refer it out and ask for budget notes for these two items, so moved.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So that passes. Okay.
And I guess we'll announce that the Transportation Committee has new items. So we now have West Raleigh Blue Ridge Transportation update that will be heard in committee on March 27th from 3 to 5 in council chambers, and then the neighborhood traffic calming program topic. I'm looking at Assistant City Manager Moore. Do you think we can hear both in committee, or should I put the traffic management in April? Or do we need to know right now? Doing both? Great. So both of those topics will be heard at the end of March.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have the report from Mayor and Council, and I will start with the Mayor Pro Tem Fort.
No report.
Going this way?
Yep.
I just had one item. This was in my general questions that they gave us, but there were several months ago we had requests for demolition of a burned out house on New Bern Avenue. council members who were on the council at the time may recall that the owner came here. He was a gentleman who had a death in the family, had requested additional time, was looking to sell the property. We gave him that time. I've had neighbors in the area reaching out again because the house is still there in the burned out condition. I think the fire was like 2-3 years ago. I'm informed that there's a pending sale for the property and they've pulled demolition permits for the address. So I would just ask that we can monitor this, because what I don't want to have happen is that if there's a new owner and they still don't demo, that it's a safety issue. So if we could just get that, if the planning department could just monitor this and then maybe get an update in the manager's report or so. I just want to stay on top of it. But hopefully the new owners will close and build a new house there and everything will be fine. And that's all I have.
All right, so highlighting good stuff from the consent agenda, we approved a contract for street resurfacing for 71 street segments, and that will also get bike lanes and sidewalks, so including Calvary Drive, the Falls of the Neuse Bridge, and Hargrove Road in my district. I'm hosting office hours Thursday the 13th, location TBD, so watch social media for that, 6 hours, 6 to 8 p.m. I also wanted to ask if the Growth and Natural Resources Committee could take up a topic. In the manager's update, we were given information about the UDO requirement related to forestation requirements in certain parts of the city and how that can be onerous or prohibitive. There's a resident in my district who's had a difficult time rebuilding her same exact house on the same footprint due to these, and so it could be worth considering an update to the UDO, but I think warrants a little bit further understanding to make sure we have a shared understanding. So, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that into Growth and Natural Resources Committee. Are you looking for it in March? I think that would be the 25th at 3 p.m. I'm sorry, at 4.
Okay. Works for me if it works for staff. I don't have a timeline, or I don't have a hard deadline.
Okay.
Okay, that's your regular scheduled time.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. And then my last thing is I just wanted to thank the council for affording me the opportunity to attend a conference on combating polarization and violent extremism. I was able to go to Manchester in the UK last week, and there were mayors at this conference from all across the United States, but also across Europe. And the conversations were really compelling, and in particular, so in short order, I'll be sending you all some notes with programs that I thought were interesting and that we might want to noodle on. But one thing that I thought was really compelling is that there were mayors from occupied cities in Ukraine, and it was they were describing their experience trying to be mayors and city council members delivering the same services that we deliver here. So keeping their parks clean, keeping their sidewalks paved, keeping the water flowing, and how difficult that was in an Russian-occupied territory. And then in subsequent world events happened on Friday, and I just was reminded that the experiences we think belong to others are always a little closer to us than we realize. So thanks to the council for that opportunity.
I have 2 items. One, I see Miss Octavia Rainey in the room. I want to thank her for the Black History Month event a couple of Saturdays ago. Octavia gave me some homework to do since it was focused on District C. I have been discussing it with Councilmember Branch, and so all I can say is that your requests is now being considered for both streets and memorial sites. So that's all I can say at this point. I'm not making any promises. This is the administration of the city we have to work with, but I heard you, and so we are already, Councilmember Branch and I, in conversation, so we'll get back to you regarding that. I do have one. This is for both the city manager and fire chief. I went to an event this weekend. I was approached by an individual very concerned about wildfires, and while I know it's very extreme out west, this individual, and again, I apologize because I did not know this was an issue here in North Carolina where about 33 acres burned, and also an issue in South Carolina. I didn't believe there was an imminent threat, but I don't know whether there's anything either you or the fire chief can share to show that we have this under control. I'm sure it was something of that nature. It's not just the city of Raleigh, but we rely on other partners. But again, I just wanted to make sure I heard this individual. And I am very confident that we have a public safety team that is monitoring any situation. I think the one that happened in North Carolina was from a cookout that spread and burnt 3,300 acres. But this person was very concerned, either from what's happening on the West Coast or what's happening closer to home, that there is no imminent threat to the city of Raleigh.
Okay. Last night, a few of us went to a Ramadan celebration, break fast, and so Ramadan Mubarak. And then also tomorrow, Lent starts. And of course, we have Passover in April. So I just wanted to take the moment to say, just very grateful for all the communities of faith here in Raleigh who not only shepherd their own congregations, but also do a lot of work for the community. I was at Edenton Street Methodist, who's working with our unhoused this week. I was at Hayes Barton Baptist on Sunday, and they're doing meal packaging after-school programs. So just incredible amount of work by citizens across Raleigh showing care for their neighbors, and just wanted to say that in this maybe a little more holy season than some of the others. So thank you.
Thank you. I just have two this afternoon. One, the next District E community meeting will be March 12th from 6 to 8 at La Cucina Italian Restaurant off of Glenwood Avenue. So join us and have a delicious meal. And then the next meeting of our book club, our Decoding Democracy book club, will be Saturday, March 15th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. at Oberlin Regional Library. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you, Mayor. There's four quick items. Two of them are tied to Ms. Rainey's event that we had at Tarboro Road. One is I spoke with the family, the White family. I'm going to get with them about the process for that street in particular. Two is I had a conversation briefly with our staff. I would ask if we could authorize our staff to look into an honorary naming process for streets. And what this means is the base street name wouldn't necessarily change, but the street can still recognize someone based upon the criteria that we have. I think Charlotte has this in place already, some other cities. I got the idea actually from looking at New York. I saw a picture where there was a street named, it was Malcolm X Boulevard, but it was still 35th Street. So that's something we want to look at, because we have some streets that to change the name, it's a major cost impact to individual and businesses along those corridors. But this is still a way to recognize people. So if we can just, if council is okay, ask staff to look at a process and just bring it back to council for us to figure out if we want to move forward with it or not. The other part is there's been a lot of conversation in emails about Brookside Drive. I will ask if staff can bring the updated proposal for Brookside Drive to council at our March 18th meeting as a special item, so that council can be updated and we can possibly move forward. This Brookside Drive, if you remember, it's a safety issue. We discussed this in our committee. We're looking at bicycle lanes, parking, and the conflict between the two based on feedback from the community. But I think staff hopefully has come with I would say a proposal that hits the spot. So if we can have that at March 18th, that allows us time to move forward. And lastly, this coming Monday, March 10th at 1214 East Lenoir Street. Instead of having my own District C meeting, I'm actually going to be part of a community voices conversation with our school board representative for my district, Mr. Sheba Rice, our county commissioners, Tara Waters, and Ms. Monica Hoster Johnson, House of Representatives, and other speakers. We'll be talking about mental health, but there will be a town hall conversation on March 10th, this coming Monday at 6:30 p.m. at 1214 East Lenoir Street. People may know this is the same location where I previously have had District C meetings. So it will take place this coming Monday. And that is all I have.
All right, I just want to say first thank you to the folks who are protesting today on North Carolina's Capitol lawn. Councilmember Jones and I had the chance to hear folks singing their hearts out with their raging grannies, and I appreciated the upside down American flags. My goal, though, is that we can turn the flags right side up as soon as possible. I could go on about any number of items at the national level, but I'm just going to focus on one topic today, and that is Raleigh's science economy. We are a hub for life science and biotechnology jobs, and the new federal administration puts that economic foundation at risk. The biotech industry has long driven the Triangle's growth, making Research Triangle Park a name brand across the country. From scientists with advanced degrees, community college graduates, these are high-paying jobs that helps Raleigh thrive. These are also the people who develop vaccines and discover new life-saving medical advances. This is the head of an infectious disease laboratory at the National Institute of Health, an RTP, who was fired without cause by the Trump administration. This is the RTI contractor who lost all of their USAID funding. This is the Wake County science teacher who no longer receives U.S. Department of Education grants to supplement their pay. And I just want us to think about the economic impacts of these jobs, if not these individuals. Over 40,000 people work in the life science industry in the Triangle, and these are our neighbors. They pay our taxes. They're the ones who make our parks possible, our schools, the police. These are our friends who will not be able to pay their mortgages or their rent if they're laid off. These are the customers at our restaurants and our shops. And this is also, for me, very much about the next generation. When I'm not at Raleigh City Council, I work at NC State University as a faculty member, and I manage millions of federal dollars in environmental research grants. I know how students enter the science fields and get hands-on experience. We are preparing the next generation workforce for careers in science, technology, engineering, and medicine, fields that improve our lives. If you find any of these national developments concerning, I invite you to join the March for Science. That is going to be on Friday at noon, downtown Raleigh. We're meeting at Halifax Mall. You can also call your U.S. senators and congressional representatives. These national policies have ripple effects on Raleigh. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have appointments, and I will turn it to the clerk's office.
There we go. First, we have Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, 2 regular vacancies. Brittany Bryan received 5 votes, Sean Fernandez 3, James Thrasher 5. So Brittany Bryan and James Thrasher would be appointed there. Next is Board of Adjustment, 1 alternate vacancies. No nominees there, so this will appear on your next ballot for consideration. Next is Design Review Commission, 1 alternate vacancy. Adan Quesada received 8 votes, so would be appointed. Environmental Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. Tina Scott received 8 votes, so would be appointed. Planning Commission, 1 regular vacancy. Jason Kress received 1 vote. Tolulope Omakaye received 7, so Ms. Omakaye would be appointed. We'll note here that Mr. Neptune's nomination was withdrawn by Council Members Jones and Harrison. And then with the new resignation to be announced shortly, I will carry over Mr. Kress's nomination to the next ballot with that vacancy.
Cassidy, I have a question.
Sure.
We had 1 person resign, which will be announced in the next section, and then Mr. Mann is just term limited. And so he would continue to serve until replaced, but the resignation, I'm assuming, is immediate. So is there any way to declare the vacancy for Mr. Mann's seat so that the person so Tolulope could take the resignated? So I just don't want there to be a gap.
Right. Yeah,
So-
we can place her in whichever way makes it so that there's more immediate.
We had someone resign and then someone who can, the other person is just term limited, they can continue to serve until replaced. So I'm just asking if Tolulope, who was just appointed, could take the resignation seat, and that way Mr. Mann can stay and on until we have a replacement.
Yeah. Yep.
And Cassidy, I'd like to nominate again Nick Neptune for the next opportunity.
Me as well.
All right, that will be coming back. Lastly, under appointments, Raleigh Transit Authority, 1 alternate vacancy. William McKinney received 8 votes, so would be appointed. Under nominations, art commissions, these are new announcements. Term of Jessica Todd Marone is expiring. She would like to be considered for reappointment. Per council's request, information was contained in the agenda materials regarding her attendance.
I just have a question for my colleagues, because I looked at the notes, and this individual missed close to 50% of the meetings. I read through the rationale. Do we know if this is a commission that's struggling to meet a quorum? It seems as that her experience is trending in the right direction, but wasn't clear whether that pattern would continue. So I just didn't know whether, I don't know if Sarah's here, but whether this group is meeting quorum.
I haven't heard of any issues, and normally the chairs will let us know if they are.
Okay.
We can also hold it if you just want to get that
Well,
information.
I mean, I can say I know her well. She's been very active, and first night she's been active at the park. So I know she does some travel internationally. So, but I would be supportive of moving forward if she wants to continue to serve, given.
Yeah, I would just encourage, I understand that, she does a lot of world traveling, but just want to make sure that,
Yep.
to make sure that, whether online or in person, I don't know what the standard is for the commission, but that there is just, a desire to participate more. But if it's not a quorum issue, and sounds like, based on what Councilor Member Branch is saying, wasn't brought to our attention, I'll support moving forward as well.
I move to reappoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Nay. Okay.
All right, next, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. Term of James Rottenberry is expiring, and he does not wish to be considered for reappointment. So per city code, he will continue to serve until replaced, and that'll be added on to your next ballot, along with the previously announced vacancy. Next is Design Review Commission, 1 regular vacancy. The term of regular member Adam Walters is expiring. He's not eligible for reappointment due to length of service. Past practice has been to elevate the longest serving alternate and declare an alternate to a regular slot and declare an alternate vacancy. In this case, we have 2 alternates that started at the same time. Kat Schmidt and Dave Toms. Their application and attendance information was included in the agenda materials.
I'm doing some quick math.
I'm sorry, going back to BPAC, can I renominate Sean Fernandez?
Sure.
Thanks.
On this one, Kat has attended a higher percentage of meetings, so I move to elevate Kat to the regular vacancy.
Doing it by eyeball, but I was waiting for you.
Yeah, I had my calculator.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, so that newly created alternate vacancy will be coming back. Environmental Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. Resignation has been received from Thomas Ridley, so this will appear on your next ballot. Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board, 2 regular vacancies. The term of Beverly Clark is expiring. She is not eligible for reappointment due to length of service. Additionally, we have a resignation from Shangwin Liu. I will note that in addition to the above announcements, the board still has 1 outstanding vacancy for a member whose term expired last summer. The member has continued to serve until replaced, and the board's ad hoc nominating committee continues to deliberate on a replacement. So once we hear back from them on that, and these 2 new vacancies, which brings the total up to 3, we will share the information with the council.
I'm going to go ahead and nominate Jack Hilton. I still think the council has the authority to make nominations. There's 3 pending, and their ad hoc committee's not sent us anyone. So I nominate Jack Hilton, and I'll make sure his application's in.
And Cassidy, could you please tell the Parks Board that we need their recommendations by our next meeting, March 18th. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the old procedures.
Clear, I nominate 1. There's 3 vacancies, so I would suggest that they send us 2 names because I intend to proceed with mine if the council will approve.
Okay.
Next is Planning Commission, one regular vacancy. We already discussed this earlier. Resignation has been received from Jennifer Lampman, so that additional vacancy will be reflected on your next ballot. And lastly, Stormwater Management Advisory Commission, 2 regular vacancies. Terms of 2 members are expiring. First is Josh Dalton. He would like to be considered for reappointment. And then second is Reverend Jamon Taylor, who is not eligible for reappointment due to length of service. As a reminder, the commission operates under an adopted matrix that defines desired skill sets. Reverend Taylor fills a slot of a representative of an environmental nonprofit group, knowledgeable in the area of stormwater, water resources, or water quality. However, we do have an existing member that meets that criteria as well. So 2 different items here to consider.
Move to reappoint Mr. Dalton.
Second.
Okay.
And I don't have anybody yet, but I am, will be attending the stormwater management meeting this week. So hopefully I will get some insight at that point if there are anybody that they are thinking of.
Okay. So all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So that.
And Madam Mayor, if we can, I know we addressed the Planning Commission, but one thing I want to say is that at their last presentation, they were very specific about skill sets that they were looking for. And so I know that we've put forward nominations, but I'm not necessarily sure that we're honoring the requests that they've made of us in terms of specific skill sets with folks that are being nominated and voted on to serve. And so I do want to make sure that we're being cognizant of what they've asked us for as we're making these nominations going forward.
I'll just add, I served with Jennifer Lampman on the board of Passage Home. She works in the affordable housing financing industry. I think her loss on the Planning Commission is pretty impactful, and so I just want to be mindful of that. And we did ask the chair for skill sets, and we have very qualified new people who've been appointed, but I don't think any of them fulfill any of the skill sets that the chair actually told us about. So we should probably be very prescriptive with this last vacancy we have right now.
Yep. Okay. That concludes, yes.
Is there a way to put that into the code? Are we saying that the request that the planning commissioner chair came and gave us is now codified? Because I don't, if the request is to make these roles a specific thing, then is that what we're planning to do?
No, but when we ask someone in a meeting what they need and they tell us and then we don't nominate those people, then I just think it's, yeah, why ask?
Well, and I will say, since I raised the topic, I mean, one of the things is that they're giving us advice on, these cases that are coming before them, and the folks that they've enumerated, I mean, we don't have anybody who's got a real estate background serving on the commission. That was one of the things that they specifically asked for. I mean, there are certain technical things that they're looking for in terms of advising on these rezoning cases. And so, again, it's not necessarily making it a part of our code, but if they're advising us on zoning cases and there's certain perspectives that they would like to see communicated to us as a council, I think we have to put those people in place to give us that information. So we asked them what they needed, they told us, and we're not nominating people who fall in those categories.
I just want to follow up. I think if there's anyone who's got folks in mind that fit those, please nominate them. And if there's anyone out there that's listening, please come to us, because we
haven't even started nominating, but
Yeah,
I was waiting. But yeah, so I think we've got a number of very we've got some really great people we've already approved. We've got some really great people willing to serve, so we're fortunate to have a lot of people that I think will meet some of the technical qualifications.
And I will say this, I was texting somebody in the meeting and he's agreed to serve, so I'm nominating Brian Burnett to serve on the Planning Commission.
Yeah. Okay.
I second that.
Just what is the deadline for nominations for the next ballot?
So today, anything you say today would appear on the next ballot. It's up to the council if you want to hold the item.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well, Mark Shelburne is a housing finance expert who had expressed interest, and so because he's got a profile very much like Jennifer Lampman, I'll go ahead and nominate him.
And then it may be helpful, Cassie, and I know you gave us that printed stack. Sometimes it's really hard to sift through that. If you could send us an email with just upcoming vacancies, I think we're going to have a couple more this term or maybe even this year for folks who are not eligible for reappointment. That may also help us all sort of, space out, because it sounds like we've got a lot of qualified people who want to serve, and we can kind of space it out.
Yes, Lou, city clerk, had actually brought that to my attention. We provide usually every 6 months a report of upcoming vacancies. We did that close to the end of last year, but given there's a couple new people on board, every half a year or so, the clerk's office produces a document forecasting upcoming vacancies and expirations. Are people eligible for reappointment? Are they not? Of course, it doesn't necessarily speak to any unplanned things like resignations or if they don't want to be reappointed, but we are working on another report to distribute. And to be clear, is that you're wanting the normal report that you normally get, or do you want additional applications or data with that?
I think normal report is great, but I think we have an acute issue here, and so if we could just get a quick forecast just for this board and commission, I think that would be super helpful.
Got it. Okay. Will do.
All right. Next, we have the report of the city attorney.
Mayor and members of council, I'm pleased to announce that Carolyn Bechtel-Bockel, of my office has been named as a deputy attorney. Carolyn will lead our land use group that David York previously led. Carolyn has been with our office for 13 years, and during that time has primarily worked with Raleigh Water, it's a tongue twister, but also has handled matters involving land use as a result of that. When Carolyn told me that she was interested, I said, "Are you sure?" And so she actually started working with David before he left, and so we're excited that she was willing to take on this challenge and know that she will be a valuable addition to our leadership team. Congratulations. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. And then we have the report of the city clerk.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You received 4 sets of minutes in your agenda materials, including your last regular session, 2 work sessions, and the January retreat.
Right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we have a closed session, and I have the language here that a motion to enter closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the city attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
Second.
All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
We're going into closed session.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's all of them.
7 o'clock. Lou, can I get the print, hard copy print of just all the public hearing people for tonight?
Yes.